Well, hello and welcome to class. It's week 4, as you can see, and this is project management. We're going to be looking ahead using the project that we've been developing over the past few weeks and now investigating the areas of risk management and risk assessment. So the first assignment has you look at risks and look at your project that you've been working on, and then look at the individual paths, the critical paths through the project. Remember, the critical path is the shortest path to complete the project, where all the necessary tasks get done. Depending on your project, you may have multiple critical paths, all that need to be completed in the same amount of time. So, in those paths, you'll find tasks, particular tasks and activities that may be subject to some risk. If your project depends upon doing some sort of work outside, there's always the risk of bad weather. If your project or your task depends upon some contractors being available and showing up on time, well, there may be a risk that the contractors are unreliable and don't show up. So if you're a project manager, you're should be and are responsible for managing risk, identifying it, and then coming up with backup plans, a plan B in case this happens. All right, so that's going to be your discussion for the week. And this, again, everybody will be talking about their own project and their own particular tasks that are necessary, but I think it'll be interesting to see the risks that are associated with those, because we may find quite a bit more similarity in risks. For example, a critical member of management gets reassigned and doesn't have any time to devote to the project, or somebody gets fired who you were depending upon, or there's a cutback in budget during the time when it goes into the next budget cycle, and all of a sudden the money that was available to do the project gets cut in half. So there's all kinds of things that have to happen, and as a project manager you need to be thinking ahead to identify those and come up with a backup plan. We also have a paper that you're going to be writing. Again, this is in regard to your particular project. And what we want to do here is look in an organized fashion. Now, the book has, in chapter number 7, has several different tools, tables, if you will, or matrices that are used to try to identify risk and then how you're going to be able to deal with it. So, for this particular assignment, we're going to be looking at a matrix, something like this, where you're going to be identifying the particular critical path that the risk is situated on, and then the reason for the risk, and then how to prevent the risk, or if the risk still happens, what else you're going to be able to do, what's your backup plan. Okay. So one critical path in my project was a path that went from task A to task C to task D, F, and finally finish at L. The reason this path was at risk was some of the work had to be done outdoors, and there was always the risk of bad weather. So how we were going to try to prevent the risk was to schedule the outdoor tasks during the dry seasons, or less likely to have hurricanes and less likely to have thunderstorms. However, we know thunderstorms can come up at any time, so if that happens, we have a backup plan. We have tarps we can use and trailers we can move on site so that the work can continue. Again, why is that important? Well, if we go back to our definition of a critical path, it means that particular task on that path, each one of those tasks has to be started on schedule, has to be completed on schedule. We don't have time to wait for the rain to stop. We have to keep working to meet our deadlines. Otherwise, the entire project is going to be late. That's the definition of the critical path. Now, I had a second critical path, AGHL, that worked its way through my project. And here, because it's a construction project, one of the reasons was there might be a shortage of cement available when we needed it. Okay? So one of the ways we were going to deal with that is to contract and, in a sense, store ahead some of the concrete so we know there would be enough available, that we wouldn't run out of local availability. However, if we did run out, we wanted to have alternative suppliers already lined up so that we could quickly get them to bring in the concrete that we needed and not delay any of these tasks. Then the third one is a critical path that goes from task A to task C to task G, H, and then I, and then L to finish. Now, one of those tasks, one or more of the tasks on that path require inspection. So we have to get the city and county inspectors out, again, depending on the nature of the project, to approve electrical or to approve plumbing or to approve something or other. That's going to give us a form that says we've passed the required inspection, and those have to happen at the right time so we can continue along. So what are we going to do? We're going to first try to avoid delaying an inspection by making sure that we schedule ahead. Rather than come in at the last minute and expect to be able to get our inspection done that same day, we're going to actually plan ahead to have the work completed and have the inspector scheduled to arrive on site. What happens if we still can't get the inspection? Well, here we're going to be perhaps going to have to call in favors, try to find somebody that can put some leverage on the inspection schedule so that we get pushed up ahead. As you know, that sort of thing happens all the time, so we want to identify who owes us favors in the inspector's department that we can lean on if we need to get an inspection done. Okay, so you got to be creative. I mean, that's the whole idea here, is we're hoping something bad doesn't happen. We're hoping this risk doesn't materialize, but simply ignoring it or being unaware of it isn't an excuse. That's what gets project managers fired. Something happened they should have expected or should have at least anticipated it could happen, and they should have a backup plan. Then we also, for week 4, have a project management assessment. And here you're going to be going to the website shown there, where it's about a 3 to 4 minute presentation about the critical path method, and basically it's a alternative view called the critical chain project management, where rather than looking at a single project, she claims that most companies have multiple projects that are sharing resources, and that really looking at a single project doesn't provide the full view that you need to be able to schedule resources and schedule not the budget, but the overall timetable for tasks, unless you're looking at multiple projects at the same time. Okay, so that's what you're going to write up here, basically describing what this video is talking about, and then look up a few more references to make sure that this person knows their stuff, that they're talking about the right thing. Okay, so that's 3 assignments: discussion post, the matrix and paper that go along with identifying risk, and then the critical chain concept. Keys to success for this week. Well, start early. There's a lot to do. We've got a lot of work, and be sure and pay attention to your textbook. That's where you're going to learn this stuff. If you don't already know it coming into the class, the textbook is an essential guide to helping you understand what these topics mean and how to write about them. Look for synergies. As you're working on a particular part of the week's tasks, look for ways that you can use the same ideas in another one. So if you stumble across something related to critical chain process while you're looking at risks, certainly note that down so you know how to come back to it and use it, because you're going to be writing about it in the next assignment. Excuse me. And some of these ideas may be a little difficult to understand just from the textbook reading. Okay, but the internet is a fabulous tool. We don't suggest you use Google or YouTube as a quoted reference in your paper, certainly, but as a way of finding different ways of explaining things to you. I think it's invaluable. You can Google on a critical path and you will end up with thousands and thousands of explanations of how the critical path technology works. So again, don't be hesitant to use that to your benefit. It's just we tend to tell people not to use these as references in their academic papers. All right, until next time, you know how to get in touch with me if you have any questions. Good luck with the assignments, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you next week. Bye.